Good evening, all of those that stumble across this channel and listen to me for reasons that you probably shouldn't think about too much, or you'll be like, why am I listening to this nobody who goes off on tangents and he's kind of eccentric, and, uses too much satire and dark humor, and he's kind of dry in his humor. But yeah, just listen anyway, because this might help you, and at least it's, I wouldn't say straightforward, but honest, and I'm speaking from my own experience. So, anyway, that being said, I haven't done a video on narcissistic tactics in a little while, and well, that's what this is going to be. And I'm going to discuss one of the most common tactics that a narcissist uses, and that is their delusions of grandeur. Narcissists tend to have delusions of grandeur about who they are, what they are, how important they are, how other people view them, their intelligence, power they wield, fame, fortune, notoriety, respect, etc. You get the point. So, I'm going to speak about some people in my personal life, and I'll use some famous examples that relates to another one of my videos. So a narcissist and their delusions of grandeur, a lot of times there's something that they wanted to achieve that they never did, and they'll convince themselves that it wasn't their fault, even if they never tried. Like my poor cousin, the crown prince, the Queen Bee's son. He never became a professional firefighter. Why, you ask? Because he never tested. It's like, so you didn't get a job you didn't apply for. Yeah, I always wondered why I never became an astronaut. And then again, I never applied to NASA, but it's NASA's fault. So, and this is a lot of times seen in people who are, in one way or the other, unqualified for that position, whether it be educational, criminal history, and stuff. A famous example would be, once again, he's a great case study in narcissism in a lot of ways, Jeremy Dewitt. Jeremy Dewitt, wanted to be a police officer. He was in an Explorer program in his teens and then pretended to be a police officer. Again, check out PoliceTube. Has some great videos on him. He's quite an interesting case study. But he has this delusion of grandeur about being a cop, and he eventually formed his business Metro State, which is a funeral escort company. And he's often seen pulling people over and acting in a police-like manner. He was on the Dr. Phil show. Dr. Phil famously said, it's like, you're badge, yeah, that's my Clinton voice. I can't do a Dr. Phil. He's like, you're badge heavy, yet you don't even have a badge. And Jeremy, as you can see in the videos of him on YouTube, like I said, PoliceTube, he often talks the lingo of police officers. When he's being interviewed by a police officer, he acts as if he's their peer. He gets high and mighty over security guards, even though, they can carry an actual firearm, unlike Jeremy, who insists to look more cop-like, carries a less than lethal pepper ball gun, which is legal for him, but he purposely carries a specific model that looks almost identical to an actual Glock-style duty weapon that a modern police officer, would carry, without like the notch on the end that shows where you would push for the CO2 cartridge. Interesting how he ensures he does that. He doesn't carry one that's blue or yellow that would indicate it's less lethal. He doesn't carry a revolver style one, which are the coolest because revolvers are better. And, that would also not denote that he's a police officer, because modern police officers, sadly, don't carry revolvers because they're too awesome for them. So, but he also, you'll see in his videos, he's pretty well known for carrying a badge inside his wallet, which no one can see. Why would a funeral escort company or a security guard need a badge in one's wallet? I can understand, like, on a uniform to denote your specific authority within your job when in uniform. So say you're a security guard and there's a theft where you work. Yes, you'd want the person looking to report that to know, like, hey, this is who I go talk to and all that. But Jeremy keeps a wallet badge, and has convinced himself that he's equal to the police. And yeah, all this back stuff's building up to something. There's a great video of him being arrested in Chicago, and when he's being arrested, he's like, "What are you guys doing? My badge! Where's my badge, Rania?" That's his wife. And he tries to convince the Chicago police at first that he is a law enforcement officer, and, unprofessionally, in my opinion, by the Chicago police, they are willing to grant him courtesy on the fact that he pretended early in the video to be a member of law enforcement. He later backtracks on that because impersonating police is a crime. He knows that, despite the fact that he's been referred to and is often known as a serial police impersonator, and he was arrested for impersonating a police officer at least once, probably more times. So that is an example of delusions of grandeur. Jeremy Dewitt was never able to become a police officer, but he does everything possible to talk the talk, walk the walk, look the part, and emulate that as much as he can, and he derives and tries to act on his fake authority that he gives himself. Fake authority is going to be my segue into my next point, but I'm going to wrap this one up first. You'll see in other videos, I think I mentioned in my video about him as a narcissistic case study, he pulls people over and, tells them to pull over and, often says, "I'm a state agent," and tries to imply, because of his delusions of grandeur, that he actually has some authority. So, this implied or self-given sense of power and title is common, with the delusions of grandeur of a narcissist, like my mother's older sister. She, the Queen Bee Narcissist, watched my video on it, please. But she sees herself as essentially the queen of Chester County. Like, her word is law. She will speak of things that she has no idea on and act as if she's an authority on it. She often would tell me that no, you don't, you're not paid in a police or a fire academy, because that's not how it works in Chester County. So it can't be how it works, because everywhere's like Chester County, because Chester County's the best, because this is where I grew up and lived. When the reality is, and her justification for knowing that is, I just know. Even though she's never lived outside of Chester County, but she's somehow telling someone who has lived in multiple other places how those local governments function, but she's the authority because she's her. These delusions of grandeur often go into setting rules. Like, my aunt makes the rules in my family, and most of them, except me, follow her like she's the dear leader. It's pretty creepy, because her only justification for this title is, "Well, I said so, and I just know." It's at least like other cult leaders, like, L. Ron Hubbard, at least wrote books and came up with some reason as to why they're so great. I mean, they're con artists, but it's like, at least they tried. I mean, at least in his case, it's like, you know what happened, about, Xenu, the supreme ruler, and how he goofed the floof. At least that's somewhat original, kind of makes sense, him being a science fiction writer, why it's the way it is. But nonetheless, I applaud the originality in him finding a reason as to why he's the prophet or the teacher or whatever. My aunt, on the other hand, is just like, "Well, I'm so great. Everybody recognizes that. Like, I decide what's right and wrong. Like, I can accuse you of things that are baseless based on I just know, but how dare you talk about my son having affairs? He's above reproach. He's the American Prince of Wales, essentially." And everybody else just goes along with it. She'll say her "I just know" line, and they'll basically be like, "Oh, well, Jeannie said, like, they might as well be like, my queen, my queen." And they do. They treat her like a queen. And yes, the irony is not lost on me that her name is Regina, which is Latin for queen. I am well aware of that because she's told me that since I was a little kid. Doesn't give you any type of authority. Guys named Rex, which means king, aren't kings because their name is Rex. So, delusions of grandeur often go into intelligence too. Not only will they use, like my aunt the ability of just knowing stuff. They will assume to be experts in basically any field they have interest in, usually without any formal education in the subject, and they'll talk about books they read that they usually didn't read because they'll get the titles wrong, but it'll be well-known books in that subject that they just heard of. And their delusions of grandeur, they will pontificate, like, say, on politics, but if somebody tries to offer a rebuttal, like me, they will say, you're not allowed, that's crazy, going, and in Chestertology, going against, like, Reaganism and voodoo economics is akin to blasphemy. And if you speak about the days before the great Reagan, descended his throne and came here, that's like, you might as well be talking about Atlantis. Or like, are we sure that's even real? Like, no, everything, Reagan, and now Trump. But, that's delusional and psychotic if you talk about things like, I didn't know I was psychotic. Well, I didn't know, I know I have PTSD, but I didn't know I was psychotic for speaking of things like demand side economics and, social democracy, the British national health system, as opposed to, which something isn't psychotic for the Prince of Chestertology, is speaking about hunting down and killing members of Congress because he's doing it in the name of tradition and preserving the true America, as the second coming of Reagan, Lord Trump, has told him to. You know, the difficult of personality, and we have it on the left too. Well, I'm not really left, but the nominal left, and all that passes for left today. Yeah. So you do, be fair, you see cults of personalities in politics on both sides that aren't based in policy, but they're based in platitudes and liking a person and wanting to have a beer with them. Can't think of very many people that are famous that I'd actually want to sit and have a beer with. There's a few, certainly one. But again, what people portray themselves as isn't always the truth. The narcissist delusions of grandeur also go into, they think they are more well known than they actually are. Like, members of my family are like in shock, clutching their pearls if they go on vacation and someone has never heard of Chester County, Pennsylvania, because it's so great. Like, how can you not have heard? How can somebody from Washington, D.C. not have heard of Chester County? Everybody knows it, Chester County. This is the area that everybody tries to emulate and tries to be like, a good old boys club who thinks it's still 1983 and is proud and proudly defends nepotism and cronyisms because that's the way it's supposed to be and that's the way it's always done. Who cares if so-and-so's son failed the police exam? His dad was a cop. He's entitled, and that's the way it's supposed to be, and how dare you call it corrupt? Delusions of grandeur, as that was a previous example of, extends to how narcissists believe they are so intelligent, so on the ball, that whatever their thoughts are by definition true. Like, well, I'm so great. If I think this is how something works, even if I have no formal knowledge and the other person who dares question my authority does question my authority, then they will assume that what they think is right simply because they're the ones that thought about it. And narcissists with delusions of grandeur come up with the most compelling rebuttals when you call them out on their lies and their bullshit and their delusions. It's never seen, like, I studied debate, but I never mastered the most useful means of rebutting somebody, which is simply now, wrong. And that's another narcissistic tactic in itself, especially if you are a black sheep or one of their targets. You, to them, to the narcissist, are not allowed to be right. So it doesn't matter, your education, what you actually know, your own life experiences, how many people back you up. You're not allowed to be right because you are a lesser because I say so. And in my delusions of grandeur as a narcissist, I am a person of authority who is to be respected. And what I say goes. Narcissism and authoritarianism often cross over. You'll see narcissists, especially with delusions of grandeur, be drawn to authoritarian positions where they have absolute power. Yes, I'm talking about you, David Miscavige, who originally was from this area. Need I make a connection? I think there's something to it. But with narcissists, delusions of grandeur, Chester County, especially baby boomers, David Miscavige, just one example. But they will be drawn to positions like that where, by definition, people cannot question them, and they can pull whatever they want out of their ass, and those under their so-called command who get to be convinced that they must obey because coercive control. And you want to know more about that, read John Atak's book, Opening Our Minds. Damn, I wish I had that thing 15 years ago. So a narcissist in their delusion of grandeur not only want to be authoritarian, they want to create an environment of coercive control where those that they deem they have power over must obey the narcissist and authoritarianism, or basically all is lost, their whole life is lost. They will delusions of grandeur in this kind of narcissism, like with cult leaders, will often extend to the narcissist and their delusions of grandeur, making them not only better than everybody, like intelligence-wise, charisma, all that, but often divine. Yes, David Koresh, I mean you. They will often claim to be some kind of demigod or God or Jesus Christ return, in the case of David Koresh, whose real name was Vernon Howe. And that, it is prophecy. That is, delusions of grandeur in a narcissist will often extend to them believing that that they are manifest destiny, what they are doing was destined to be, and they are a savior of some kind in some shape or form with whoever they can fool. Another personal example, if you like, my cousin, my only first cousin, the son of the great queen, would have these delusions of grandeur about how important he, well, also with how many women he said wanted him, but need I say that? Not true. So he used to have these delusions of grandeur about how important he was in emergency services, and he's a volunteer firefighter. He's been at it a while. Nothing wrong with that, but he never tried to do anything in that field professionally because he never applied. You don't apply, you don't get it. So he would say, like, oh yeah, I got these job offers. FEMA's trying to get me to be the regional director. It's like, well, wait a minute. You bitched when I was 19 in 2006 that I got hired as a professional firefighter. You wish you could, yet you never tested. And you said you always wanted to work in emergency services. But you turned down this so-called offer of being the regional director of FEMA. Why? I thought that was everything you wanted. Well, I can't leave this area because that's Chestertology. I can't leave this area because, in his mind, I'm getting to the delusions of grandeur, Chester County Fire Services will fall apart without him. It's awful important. I don't know of any fire department, paid, combination, or volunteer, that would fall apart if any one individual were to depart that department. Quite a delusion of grandeur to think so. And that's how narcissists often act with their delusions of grandeur. They are, they, in their own minds, and they will often give descriptions of how important they are, as if the Atlas holding the world up, like Paul Ryan. Another example. So they think that in a lot of cases, in whatever their delusions of grandeur are about, that they are the savior of that industry or that profession, and they are the Atlases saving it from everything going to shit, basically. That it's basically, if they don't actually get the power, that they have delusions that they deserve, and in some cases already have, then everything will be ruined. That's their delusions of grandeur of a savior complex, which is fairly common as well. So I wanted to throw this video together. As you can see, I'm completely off the cuff as usual, about the narcissistic tactic of delusions of grandeur, so you can better familiarize yourself with it and know if you're dealing with a narcissist, they will often use this tactic at some point, and know that they're full of shit, because they will often use their delusions of grandeur to try to convince you that they can ruin your life or your career like that, and that in itself is another form of coercive control. Basically, if they're doing that to you, they can see that you see through them, and that you're the kind of person with, actual integrity who will speak out and call them out, regardless of blood relations or who or what they claim to be. And that terrifies them. So they will try to convince you that they hold some kind of power to ruin your life. In most cases, they don't. I mean, there are some narcissists with delusions of grandeur who hold actual power that they can wield, but this is usually not the case. So if you're put in such a situation, understand that the narcissist probably can't actually hurt you in the way that they're claiming that they're going to if you dare speak up. So understand that delusions of grandeur are common amongst narcissists. Here's some examples of them if they help you, and they should help you spot it sooner and know that you got nothing to worry about, and have some fun calling them out. Use facts and logic. They hate that. And remember, when dealing with someone with delusions of grandeur, never sell out your integrity and trust your intuition if it's time to call them out or not.